All right. Hopefully, you should be having audio now. Let's see. Um, we should be okay. We should be okay. All right. So, for those of you who are on, we have audio. Okay. All right. So we should have audio now. So again, let me apologize for all of the problems that we have been having. As I said this evening, we should be. I'll just tone it down. I should be having Marvin Fraser joining us, and we'll be discussing, as the caption says, life, football, and politics. As you know, Marvin was the president of the SVG Football Federation a few years ago, and he has decided to throw his hat in the ring this upcoming election. So we want to chat with Marvin a little bit, and get to know him. I knew of him through football, as president. Naturally, that's a pretty high profile position. And since football, I got to know him, as I said, and now he has decided to move into politics. And he's someone who has captured the attention of the people of Central Kingston, in my view, with many individuals who I would say I had not seen really involved in politics in times past. Now getting into politics, getting into the whole, like I went for example to his launch up at what the place name, Lodge Village, and some faces I saw there, I thought, wow, okay, he must have some appeal because I've never really seen. I was in Central for the launch of my partner Elvis. I was in Central for the launch of Beresford. I was in Central for the launch of Dominic. And some of the faces that I saw at the launch for Marvin, I can't remember seeing them at any of the three launches that I was at before. Not saying that they weren't involved, not saying they didn't support, just saying that I didn't see those faces publicly associating with the party and the candidate those times. So maybe it's something that Marvin brings to the politics, I'm not sure, but hopefully he joins us this evening and we're able to chat about that. All right, so we're waiting on him to uh, join the studio and we would chat with him. Now, I had invited him weeks before, but when I did invite him that first time, it was the same Thursday night St. Vincent and Grenadines was playing here. I think we played one of the friendlies. I think one of the friendlies, one of the friendlies at Victoria Park. So naturally, because he's a former football president, I thought, okay, I understand why you would want to go and do the football, and so go right ahead, do football, and we'll do it another week. So I spoke with him. He agreed to do this evening, and so I am waiting on him to join the studio so he can be part of this program. All right, let me just try and reach out to him and let him know that email was sent. Right. Also, last week Thursday we didn't have a show because I decided to take in some of the Unto Calypso tent. So I went to the tent last week Thursday myself, Denny, and so I met Narissa there, and so on. And we did have a fairly okay time at the tent. So Calypsonians, or whole Calypsonians from Mansik, Abijah, Zainai, Mashi, you know, a few individuals who stood out. Naturally, crowd favorites seem to have been Zainai, Abijah, and Mansik. Those seem to be the clear crowd favorites from on tour. But we would see how the judges view that and see who would go through to the semifinals. That will be held at I think the sixth or thereabout. I can't remember or I can't remember the 29th of June, I believe. Yes, I think that's the date I saw. All right, so interesting. I know tonight there's tent happening. It may well still be uh, on tour. Last night there was upstage at Russell. So you have the tent going on, and last week we didn't have we didn't have any show because of that, and I know that there are individuals who would who would may not be viewing tonight because they are at the tent this weekend. I've just been told by the director that Marvin is in studio. So let's bring Marvin in and introduce him to our viewers this evening. Marvin, good evening and welcome to Uplifted Young Marshall.
Good evening, Cian. Good evening to your viewers. Um, it's a pleasure to be here, and I thank you for the opportunity to spend some time having a little chat with you.
And I really do appreciate you coming on, Marvin. So, Marvin, before we even get into any of it, who is Marvin Fraser? Who is the Megadon? Tell us a little bit of where the Megadon is from and so forth.
Well, Marvin Fraser is from Kingstown. Marvin Fraser is from Paul's Avenue. Marvin Fraser was born in Sand Hill. Marvin Fraser grew up in Kingston Park, spent some time with the people of Kingston Park as a kid, then moved with my mom and my aunt to go and live in Rose Place. And Rose Place at the time, the now Milton Cato Memorial Hospital wasn't that. It was the Kingston General Hospital. And right where you have the big entrance gate to go into the Kingston, the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital, we used to have houses there.
Yes.
There was about two or three houses there. And my family and I, my mom and my sister and my brother and my two cousins and my aunt, we used to live in one of those houses right there. So oftentimes when I go to the hospital and head into the gate, I kind of have little memories of heading into our front door at times. And so we moved from there under some unfortunate circumstances. Of course, we moved from there, and my sister, my brother, and I went to live with my dad in Paul's Avenue. Um, And then while growing up in Paul's Avenue, we found ourselves frequenting uptown. That time, a lot of the ballers, footballers, and everybody was from uptown and Frenches and all these places. So because we all played football and street football and everything, we found ourselves up there a lot. And we found ourselves going right to the beach right there where you have the the cruise ship terminal and all of that. That wasn't there.
Right.
Where you walk, where you drive in to go into the cruise ship terminal, that was all sand. And we had some big molasses tank behind us, and we would walk on the sand there and go on the beach. And that was our beach on Sundays. We would go uptown and go on the beach and jump off of the wharf. The wharf extended out to the sea, and we would jump off of the wharf and dive for coins and marbles and all these things and swim, come back in. And so that was where we spent a lot of our childhood. Also, as a kid, we spent a lot of time up in Sharps playing football in Sharps football tournament. It was then the Sesco football tournament. So we played a lot of football up in Sharps. When we finished playing and it was night, we didn't leave Sharps until like 8 o'clock. Dark. We would stay up there and all talk with Tiba and Mona and Fame and all the other Cowie G and all the other people from up in Sharps would sit down up there and we would talk and talk football and argue about the games and talk about the matches. And before you know it, we had to We never used to catch van to come back down to Paul's Avenue. We would just walk down
Wow.
Kingston Park and come back down to Paul's Avenue. And so Marvin Fraser grew up in almost all the different areas
Tom.
of Kingston. We spent a lot
Marvin,
of time over
if I
Edinburgh too
may,
because a lot of our friends
uh-huh.
were from over Edinburgh down in Avenue down to the lower Bayside area.
If I may, Marvin, um, that
There's
part of Kingston,
something
close to the
gone wrong.
hospital, where is there a problem? Is there a problem? Okay, because I see his headphone is off, so I'm not sure what's happening there now. Um, it seems that Marvin is having some technical difficulties, so I'll allow him to sort it out. But we chatted with Marvin Fraser this evening, and I hope you're able to join us. And then once you've joined us, I ask that you share the live, right? Not sure what is happening. Not sure what is happening there, so I'm waiting. I seem to have dropped out. I seem to have dropped out. But we were hearing him quite clearly, and I'm sure already the viewers were interested and intrigued in what was happening so far. So I do hope that Marvin is able to sort out the technical issues that he's having and join us back so we could continue our discussion as we talk about the personality Marvin Fraser. All right, so we would wait until we are Marvin is able to join us, and we would continue our discussion, which I think started quite well already. I tell you, this place will be so warm. Yeah, I believe he's back in studio. So yes, Marvin, are you ready? Hold on. Let's see how that would work out. But so far, quite interesting discussion, and I would really love to hear the rest of the story and how we got into football administration, what he did professionally, and why politics. He has done national service. This is his second football president we've had. We had Louis Daisley a few weeks ago on Sunday City. This evening, we having Marvin Fraser joining us as part of all this, and being part of the discussion, staying up late with us this evening. So we seem to have Marvin back. Do we have him back? Do we have him? Marvin?
Yes, Ian.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming back. I realize you're having some issues there, and I'm happy that you're able to sort it out
Yeah.
or sort them out. So I was asking you before you got cut off whether or not the area that you grew up in front of the hospital, if that is the area that was commonly referred to as Shingle City.
I think Shingle City was more behind, like
Okay,
down. It wasn't right in front there.
okay,
That wasn't it.
okay. And
Shingle City was more down in deeper down in Rose Place.
okay, okay. Now, I remember very vividly that area because many individuals may not know Marvin, but the road that leads to the Leeward Highway wasn't where it is now. It went straight down to Bottom Tongue, past the gas station, past the bikers bar, and then it turned right at what is now the ambulance gate for the
Yes.
hospital, and the road came up. There, you had Daddy shop and other people's shop and so on. So that was the main road, and the in the construction of the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital was what cut off the road and now took up what that area, and from most casual observers, it is the reason that you have such flooding in the hospital whenever rain comes, because you cut off the gutter that brought all of this water from Montrose and all these places coming down, and so now there's nowhere for the water to go. And whenever there's rain, the water just ends up in the hospital. That's one of the catastrophes created by the New Democratic Party. So you spent a lot of your formative years in the Kingston area. Tell us about schooling. Where did you attend school?
I went to the Petersville Primary School. Yeah, I spent my time in Petersville, graduated from Petersville, went to the St. Vincent Boys Grammar School, and at the time was supposed to go to the advanced level college. And my mom was living in Trinidad at the time. My dad left for the United States. So my mom left when I was around 8 years old, and my dad left when I was just going to write CXC subjects. So I wrote the CXC subjects in the May, and my dad left around I think before that, just a little bit before that. And when I finished my subjects and stuff, my mom was to send for me to come and live in Trinidad with her, my brother and I. But then she got married and it didn't work out for us to go over there at the time. And so I tried to apply to get into the then A-level college, but I was too late. All applications were closed, everything. And at that time, I didn't have anybody in St. Vincent to really try to push for me to go into the ministry, to talk for me, anything, because my mom is away, my dad is away, and I was basically left with that. So I spent most of my time then trying to see how I could just do other things outside of not being able to go and further my A-level college, go on to not community college because that didn't exist
No,
back
it didn't
then.
exist. Right.
Advanced college, advanced. It was called. You had A. It was called A level.
Yes.
That is what it was.
Yes.
And so I couldn't get in because of that. So I spent most of my time just reading a lot of books and spending time at home and doing little things. My brother was in Bishop College. He was young at the time, and I basically did um, work at housing, did little banking for people who couldn't go out to bank so that I could finish putting my brother through school. Eventually, because I finished like when I was 16, so I was fairly young. I couldn't get into the job market at the time because I was too young. So between the ages of 16 and 18, I spent a lot of time doing stuff to kind of like help my brother go through school because my mom wasn't in no position in Trinidad to do it. And my dad left for the States under circumstances that we went through. And so that was my part of trying to get my brother to go through school. So I worked to put my brother through school, and then eventually I worked to send him and my sister off to Canada. So as the second child, I basically shouldered the responsibility
Responsibility.
because my sister is older than me by 2 years, but at the time she was soft and she was a girl, and my brother is 2 years younger than me. So at the time he was too young to do anything. So I had to be one to step up, and that is what I did. I stepped up and I made things happen. And over the years after that, I have often gone on any courses that had to be done. Everywhere I walked, and they had courses, they had training, they had anything. I did that. I trained, I walked. Eventually, I started a job in computers, and from then I just took it really seriously and I just moved into computers and I just went on. Um, and so most of that is my educational history. My educational history is more of me working and on the job experience, on the job courses, on the job, just getting all of these courses in and stuff. I have never been somebody who got the opportunity to get a degree and those things at the time because those opportunities weren't available to me at those times. They weren't available for us from in these areas, Paul's Avenue, Bottom Town. We couldn't get them. In fact, I remember applying for a job that I saw in the newspaper at one time, and because I got the subjects that they were asking for to ensure that you have mathematics and POB and these kind of subjects. And I applied for the job, and basically, the when I did get a response, it said to me that there was no opening, but it was advertised that there was an opening, but I saw that there was no opening. And so my elders in Paul's Avenue basically said to me, that is what they went through in their times too. They were torn down, even though they were better footballers. They were torn down because of where they were from. They were rejected on job sites because of where they were from. And so they kind of told me I would go through this. I would have to go through it because this is what happens to us when we're from Paul's Avenue and Bottom Town and Edinburgh and Sharps and Green Hill. These places, you kind of get a kind of pushback because people don't want to let you in the system, and that was what I faced. I was eventually told that if I want to get into the job market, I would have to stop putting Paul's Avenue as my address on my applications, and I would have to say Level Garden because where I'm from,
Right.
it could border with Level Garden. So I had to say I'm from Level Garden. And so I said I wouldn't do that. I said I would never do that. I said I know where I'm from, and if people are gonna hire me, they have to hire me from for who I am. And so I said, why am I going to say that I'm from some place, and then when I get there and they find out I'm not from where I say I'm from, then they're gonna do me the same thing. They're gonna
Yeah.
let me go anyway.
Yeah. And
So I said, I'm just going to improve myself and I'm going to wait my turn. And when something happens for me, it's going to happen for me. And so I just kept going. I kept going and I kept going. Eventually, I got a job when I was just going to turn 18, um, or just a little after 18. And since then, I've been working my way in life and making sure that I keep myself positive and keep my head up and keep trying to demonstrate that as usual, Paul's Avenue could create good people and good things. Because I grew up in a time and a place where this is what was said. It was said that we are from Paul's Avenue, we're from the slum, and
exactly.
ain't nothing good could come out of the slum. But when I looked around, everybody was using the people from the slum to accomplish so many things. I mean, we had the best set of footballers, we had the best set of netballers, we had cricketers in Paul's Avenue. My parents would show me where all the people who used to come into Paul's Avenue. In fact, when I was young, we used to go across to where um, the building just opposite Vinlek, that building when you turn the corner to go down, just opposite Vinlek, where Dr. Duncan has right there in that building. There was a building there, and they used to have the first, basically like a black empowerment newspaper. And so it was a black movement. Paul's Avenue had a black movement, a revolutionary movement. A lot of people who went on to be a lot of the historians and people to fight for rights, human rights and black rights. They started out in Paul's Avenue. So Paul's Avenue has always been a place known for standing up and fighting back and revolutionary action, and so that trickled down to us as youngsters. That came down to us that we always have to fight for what we want. We always have to fight the system. We always have to ensure that we stand up and we put our best foot forward and know that no matter what, we're always gonna be ostracized and marginalized, but some of the strongest people who have created history in St. Vincent and the Grenadines came out of Paul's Avenue. You think about people like Ozzy Constance, and you think about calypsonians like Hyper Constance, the man Errol Age Rose, and Professor. We used to go by Professor House right up in Paul's Avenue and sit down, and he would sing his calypsos to us while we were kids before he even performed them on the stage to win king and stuff. And so we have a lot of history in Paul's Avenue, and I was a part of that history in that. the struggle that we went through and stuff was real. And so I went through those struggles too. I wish I had the opportunities that a lot of the young people have today, where we could get scholarships and stuff to go with to study. I didn't have those things. And a lot of us in Paul's Avenue didn't have it. In fact, by the time, let's say it was around 1998, 99, most of the people that I grew up with had left. Their parents had taken them or sent them overseas for better opportunities over there. Unfortunately, I wasn't so lucky because although my father was overseas, he wasn't we didn't have that kind of relationship. And I think that is something that happened to a lot of us in Paul's Avenue. A lot of us in Paul's Avenue, we had dads who were around, but not dads who knew exactly how to be fathers. I think it's a difference today. Our dads were there, but they really, because they grew up not knowing what a father's love was like, and so that passed down to us. And so we had to decide to break that cycle. When we started having kids, we all decided that we are gonna break that cycle. We're gonna have kids, but we're gonna love them and treat them better than we were ever treated, and we're gonna make sure that we go out there and work as hard as possible to give them what they want. And so we did that. So
You,
I was happy still that because of how things turned out, I was able to still find my way into getting um, courses to do and all of these things so that I could improve and get to where I wanted to. In fact, Sian, when I was in school, all I thought about and wanted to be, because my mom and my dad, especially my dad at the time when I was going through primary school and up to my form 4, 5 education before he left, he wanted me to be either a doctor or a banker, a businessman. And so I didn't want the doctor side of it because I wasn't so much into biology and chemistry and these things. But I found a love for business. And I decided that I wanted to go to full business because I wanted to get into the banking system. And my thought was eventually make my parents proud by becoming a bank manager. And so that was my goal. I set it and I decided I'm going to work for it. Unfortunately, the system didn't allow me because when you're from Paul's Avenue, nobody wanted you working in the banks because Paul's Avenue was seen as a place where there's only thieves and robbers and criminals and all of these people. So the banks basically rejected any application that they saw from Paul's Avenue. Maybe one or two people who I knew ended up working in the banks and stuff. Had to get some people to vouch for them from like King Garden and these other places to pull them in. But I didn't have that opportunity.
you
And
know, you
so,
know.
mhm,
I'm glad. I mean, you've said quite a lot, and it's reminiscent of even my own past as someone who wasn't from Kingston. I'm from Chateaubriand. I'm a Leeward boy, and so the opportunities were not as abundant then. Actually, they were almost non-existent. I had the same challenges like you, where A levels were concerned. We know what A levels were. As a matter of fact, at the time when I finished secondary school, A levels used to be in a little wooden building in grammar school yard. That was the
yes,
extent. That was the extent to A levels.
yes,
They took in, I think, 60 students every year, and that was it. So in total, you had probably 120 students, Form 6, 16 lower 6, 16 upper 6, and that was it. You also mentioned the stigma that was associated with certain communities in Kingstown, like you said, Bottom Tongue, the slum, as it was commonly referred to, you know, the Edinburgh Otley Hall area. All those were areas where the stigma prevented people from exploring opportunities. Now, imagine a situation, Marvin, where one, the opportunities are already few, and then you have the additional hurdle of where you come from, so that you're not even being allowed to put one foot in the door simply because Otley Hall or Paul's Avenue or Rose Place is on your application as your address. I mean, those were some of the challenges that existed. Today, we could talk about, and just this morning I was making that point on radio, that we can talk about the abundance of opportunities for individuals regardless of what their address is. Paul's Avenue, Sandy Bay, Fitzhughes, Green Hill, whatever your address, you have the opportunity to attend secondary school, attend the community college, get jobs. So now you have people from all walks of life in all communities occupying various jobs across the country as teachers, nurses, police officers, and even those that were traditionally considered as the better jobs, the lawyers, the doctors, the engineers, and so forth. You have individuals from across the country occupying those positions because of opportunities afforded them by this government. And I think that is interesting. And later on in discussion, we do have a whole lot of time because of my fault. I was having some audio problems and that kind of thing earlier. But we will get to it quickly. We could talk about the transition into politics. But I wanted to build on something that you spoke of a while ago, and that is the type of parenting you got and how that influenced the type of parent or family man you are. Talk a little bit about that because you're a young man, mother gone, father gone. You have to take care of your siblings. But I see Marvin at functions, and there's a Mrs. Marvin and their children. Tell us how your own upbringing influenced your own attitude towards parenting and family in general.
Well, there wasn't always a Mrs. Marvin, and so there were times when a teenager or a young 20-something-year-old was a teenager and a young 20-something-year-old, and so at those times I would go hang out with my friends and all of these things. But one of the things that I did do in life is I spent a lot of time looking at what was happening in my community. And I often, and I love this, Xian, I love to analyze things. I love to check things out. And it was always me. And so most persons thought I was mature beyond my age when I was in my teens. And when I was 13, 14, people thought, nah, something is about this guy. And when I got to this stage where it was time for family, I didn't plan my family. Like, I can't say I sat down and I planned my family, but when I had my first child in the year 2000, I was 24 years of age at that time. And I said to myself, I am not going to be the type of person to have children all over the place, because I have seen what that has done in my community. And I'm not going to be the person to have a child with this lady, that lady, and a whole lot of ladies, because I have seen the kind of trouble that that caused in my own parents' relationship. My mom and my dad used to have so many arguments when I was 7, 8, 9 growing up. Well, 7, 8, because my mom eventually left when I was like 8, 9 years old. So all those times I saw what that did, and I said I hated when they argued, and the things that they argued over, of course, was him and outside affairs, and eventually having outside a child outside. And so that broke them down. And I said to myself, if I'm going to have a child now, I'm 24 now, I don't want to make any of the mistakes that my father made. I really want to do better than my father did. He wasn't around to show me those things. He left when I was like 15 years of age. So this is 9 years later. And this is 9 years later, me trying to say, draw from different examples in my community and draw from different memories. So I didn't grow up in a home where I saw a married father and a married mom and this perfect family. In fact, I grew up most of my years between 15 and let's say around 18 years of age, I grew up with a stepmother only because at that time, when I went to live with my father and my mother went to live in Trinidad, I was living with my stepfather and his woman that he was living with. And she was a wonderful stepmother. She treated me as if I was her child. She treated us as if we were her children because she had loved our dad. And she felt like if I'm going to love this man and he's going to love me back, I have to treat his children well.
Fair
So
enough.
she treated us well. We weren't abused in any way. But of course, there were times when, because she wasn't our mom, we didn't show her the kind of love and respect. And because of the fact that she was the one who helped to separate our mom and our dad, we didn't show her all the respect that she deserved. But eventually, see, and to push things forward, I didn't have the perfect examples, but I wanted to be better.
Right.
I wanted the people around me to be better. And because a lot of my peers looked up to me, I wanted them to see a different kind of example. And I wanted them to see Mega as somebody who they respect and somebody who they could say, okay, Mega has done this. And I tried my best to do it. And in fact, to tell you the truth, Sian, almost all the guys that I grew up with are married to ladies from Paul's Avenue, just like myself. I am
Okay.
married to a woman from Paul's Avenue, a woman who grew up in Paul's Avenue, a woman whose parents grew up in Paul's Avenue, because I said to myself, I want to ensure that the person who I get married to knows me from years, and I know her from years. My wife and I, we have been together for 29 years. 29. We started dating when I was 20 and she was 16, and we have been together since. We are married for 20 years and we were together 9 years before we got married. And most of my friends have done the same thing. And those persons who followed that and did that have been with their wives for as long as I have been with mine. And so that is something that I have always looked on to make sure that I draw from the right examples. But I did not do it on my own because a lot of my years have been spent living for Jesus. And so that example that I draw on a lot is based on the Word of God. And so having the Word of God to guide me when we have problems, we try to work it out based on the Word of God. And that is something that I have tried to do since I was growing up. In fact, I was baptized when I was 17, um, and that was without my mom, without my dad's guidance. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, battling with religion and learning and how to deal with the word of God and handling it. It's not until I got into my 30s that really and truly I grasped the word of God and the concept of what spiritual living is all about. And I have tried my best since then. But as the word of God says, if you say you have no sin, you're a liar and you're deceiving yourself. And so for me to say that I have not done, I've not made mistakes along the way would be ill of me, but I've learned a lot. And that is what I bank my relationship and marriage on, Sian. The fact that the Word of God helps me and guides me through all the issues and problems that I have, and that I have a marvelous, intelligent, wonderful woman by my side and behind me, guiding me and helping me 100%. A forgiving, caring person who, when I make mistakes, she's able to talk about it, look past it, and say, let's go again, let's see how things work. So, if you're asking about my family life and how I've done that, it's because one, God, two, the woman He has blessed me with, and the kids that I have, they are wonderful kids.
All right. And that I think, Marvin, is really important. And it's not very often you hear politicians or potential politicians, and I'm coming to the politics part of it just now, professing the faith like you have. So that to me, I think, is a really positive thing that you've done to make it clear, put it out there very, very clear that you're a person of faith, and this is where you stand in that regard. And you credit a lot of your successes, especially as it relates to your family life, to your faith. Now, you then moved on, Marvin, to spend some time in football administration. How was that experience for you? And what skills and tools were you able to develop as a football administrator?
It is a process. When I tell you it's a tedious process, it's a very patient process, but eventually it works out for you. I was playing football and I loved playing football. I got seriously injured, knee injuries, two serious knee injuries of both knees when I was about 21, 22. And I struggled to continue to play. I wanted to continue to play, but every time I finished playing, or even while playing, my knee would slip out of place. And I said to myself, boy, I don't know how long I could keep doing this, but I kept going. And then one day I came home from work late, and my team that I used to play with, Avenues United at the time, they went to the Victoria Park to play football because they were playing on the lights that time. And they went round to the Victoria Park and they played. And I came home and I was walking through Paul's Avenue, and there was a big argument, and all my friends were arguing, and they were arguing about the loss. They had lost, I think 6-3 to Greg's, and Greg's had never beaten us in our history of playing, and so they were really upset, and I thought they were angry, and I went to them. I said, "Boy, should I just go home? I'm tired." So I'm trying to go home, and they stopped me, and they started to tell me about the match and tell me about the flaws. And I listened to them and I asked some questions. I asked, like, who was making the substitutions? If all of you here were playing, who was responsible for making the substitution? Who was on the bench? Who was leading? Who was the person? And they said to me that there were two players on the field playing who was making the substitutions from on the field. And I said, well, that is where we failed. I said, that is where we fail. We need something better. We need something different. And so they said, so you want to stop playing and start being the person on the bench to manage the team? And I said, I will, but you guys have to promise that you're gonna allow me to be the person to do this and not be persons to tell me that I'm doing something wrong or this and that with this kind of attitude. And they said, Mega, we leave this up to you. You do this. And I said, okay. And at that point in time, I started to be the manager of Avenues United. We went through the competition. Eventually, we move on to a couple of years later. I'm still the manager. Avenues is unbeaten. Avenues is beating every team in St. Vincent. We are heading off the CONCACAF Club Championship in Puerto Rico. We are making ESPN as the only club in St. Vincent that has not lost a game for 4 years, four consecutive tournaments. We are making history because no club anywhere in the world playing club football has done that, whether amateur or professional. And so everybody is saying, like, great, great, great. And I am single-handedly managing Avenues. I am doing the documentation. I'm doing every single thing, and I am putting things in place. I'm the one writing letters to go to sponsors. I'm sitting down talking to sponsors. And so that is whole work in itself, and it's making me better. I'm doing it for years and years, and I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm meeting new people and I'm sitting down and I'm opening up and I'm making networks, and I am eventually I sit down at a football meeting, and it was under Jodel's presidency, and he has an executive, and two persons are no longer members of the executive. Larry Bascom, I think his name was, from
Right, from
Mexico.
Mexico.
He was really good. He was. I used to listen to him read sports and stuff every
Yes,
time, and
yes.
he was so good. And he was a part of the executive, and I think he had passed away. And then there was another person at the time. I can't recall his name right now, but he used to be into accounting. Jeff, I think his name was. Jeff. I knew him as Jeff. And so
Okay.
he had stepped down from the executive, and they needed two persons to fulfill the role of committee members for the executive. And I was there present just to be able to represent Avenue. So I was sitting there. People knew that I was doing good work with Avenues. I was winning competitions, and Avenues was top class at the time. And I sat down, but I didn't go there to be anything on any executive. I went there to represent the club, and they were nominating persons to fill the positions. And I think they nominated about four persons, and the four persons declined. They didn't want to be a part of the executive because one, it wasn't paying because Jodels had said that he would not, his executive would not be paid, so they weren't being paid. And secondly, persons weren't too interested in being a part of that executive because of the things that they had heard. And so, in the midst of it, somebody nominates Marvin Fraser. I think at the time it was Andrew Bramble that nominated Marvin Fraser. And I looked around and I wanted to do the same because everybody is declining. And why are you nominating me if persons who are into football administration and everything before me are declining? Why shouldn't I decline? And then I said, you know what? This is exactly why I shouldn't decline, because everybody is declining. So I will be different and I will do something different. And I decided not to decline. And so eventually I got one of the positions. And then there was my friend, Allah. He was at the time working with Hope. And I said to him, Allah, if they nominate you, don't decline either. Let you and I let's try this. And he did not decline, and so him and I went in on the Jodels administration, and we solved. And so that was an eye opener. Being on the executive for the first time, we did I think is a year and a couple of months because it was to fill the gap at the time. So we did that. We spent some time there, see, and we learned. We learned. I learned a lot from being on the inside of an executive for the first time. And then after that, it was election time. Jodels decided that he would not contest again, and I was asked to be a part of Venal Coom's slate, which I did, and I became a vice president there. And since then, I served on the administrative level of football for 11, 11 years. 11 years. Um, Plus, I moved from the manager of Avenues. They made me the president of Avenues Football Club, Avenues United Sports Club. And so I spent a lot of years in that position, learning, developing, maturing, smoothing out my rough edges, making mistakes, learning from them. And eventually, I was able to harness that into something that I could use across my life. And so that is what I've been doing.
Now, you spent a number of years as football president. You said you spent about 11 years in total on various in various positions on the executive. What would you consider your single major achievement as president of the St. Vincent Football Federation?
As the president, I don't think as the president I would count the my single my best achievement. I think my best achievement came as part of the executive when I wasn't the president, when we sat down and decided to go into helping the young people with scholarships, football scholarships. I think that was one of the biggest moves that we made, working along with Ian Sardine and stuff to get a lot of the kids out there and putting our foot in the door to get a lot of the youths from St. Vincent into colleges out there. That was accomplished before I was president, and I think that is one of the biggest thing that I look back and say, because it is still happening now, and I see a lot of the kids going out there and being a part of colleges out there. But that happened when I was there, and that is what I helped to orchestrate at that time. As part of the presidency, I was a president for 15, let's say, about 15 months, because I started in the August of 2018, And so you fast forward to the August of 2019, and by the time it end in the end of October, which is 3 months after, so it's 15 months, I was out of football basically from that administrative perspective. So 15 months as the president, I think the achievement that I made was getting the national teams of St. Vincent and the Grenadines at a level where persons were willing again to come out and be a part of football. When I took over as president, we weren't filling stadiums. We didn't have a product like that. People used to go to football, but it was not the spectacle that it was eventually turned into in the 15 months. And that was one of the things that I wanted to accomplish. I wanted to get back the life into football again, get people back behind football again. And so I placed a lot of effort into marketing and a lot of effort into the national teams and the support and getting people back. And so the visual aspect of it, merging for the first time football with entertainment and all of that, that is what I achieved a lot in my 15 months as a president, and that would be one of the greatest things that people remember me for, and truly what I was able to bring to the table, that aspect of administratively getting things together. Yeah.
No, we already over 10 o'clock, but the discussion is quite interesting. So I have a few more questions I want to ask you before I let you go, Marvin. I want you to tell me, comment on what your own thoughts on the level of support the government has given in regards or regarding the development of infrastructure to support the work of the federation. How would you what was the word I want to use? What are your thoughts on that, on the level of support given to football, not just during your tenure, but Jodels before you, at Okashi or Otashi,
Otashi. Otashi.
Otashi, who's the current president? This one. What are your thoughts on the level of support given by the government to the development of the sporting infrastructure to support football?
I think if I'm going to be honest, it could be better. I would love it to be better, based on the fact that there are countries who are ahead of us just by ensuring that these sporting facilities are with lights. Everything has moved away from trying to get everything in the day, and so I am grateful to see the government and the push that they have made over the last couple of years with the infrastructure at Diamonds, with the infrastructure at Arnesville, and what they have decided to do now. What I would love to see when it comes to assisting with what is happening with sports now is these the and I'm hearing it, and I know that it's part of the plan based on the discussion at parliament and the discussion in the budget and everything that I've seen in the budget, and what the finance minister and the sport minister Brewster and of course Camelo have in place, that we can expect a great push going forward in the next couple of years as it pertains to um, lighting these rural facilities and also making sure that these facilities are upgraded. If you ask what it has been, it has been over the last couple of years a great push. I believe that where countries have ensure that they have done it 5, 10 years ago. We are basically a couple of years behind them on that part, but it is good to see that we are actually doing it. In fact, there are some fields that we have tried in the past to get upgraded and done. But these things never really materialized. I remember closing down a lot of fields in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, fields being closed down for rehabilitation and stuff. And then when you checked it out, the product wasn't good enough. But to tell you what it is, Sian, if we really truly put what we say we're gonna do into the sporting infrastructure across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I believe that we have the talent pool. I believe we have everything to really make it great. One of the things that we really need in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a serious indoor facility. Too many of our athletes, netballers, and footballers, basketballers, you see them walking around. Everybody seems to have a damaged knee, and that is because we're still playing netball on concrete surfaces. And when our ladies leave here to go overseas, they then find themselves playing on indoor facilities and stuff, and not on concrete. And it's a different
Big.
kind of vibes. And so these are things that we have to look into. And I've sat at discussions, and I know, like I said, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Sports, the Prime Minister, I'm not saying anything that they don't know already. They know that these things are necessary. It's about prioritizing, it's about getting the money to do it, and to get things right. And every time we think about how far we could go, we seem to, and when we plan to get something done, we seem to get a setback with some kind of natural disaster that sets us back, and we have to plan and plot again. But I know that with this government and the vision that the PM has, and the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Sports, I know that the future for the infrastructural development, the sporting development, sports, the youth, sporting tourism, all of that is right there at the top of the train to deal with, and it's gonna be dealt with. And so I could look back and say, we are a bit behind, but even though we are a bit behind with the facilities and the lighting of facilities like the Barbados and the Trinidad and these places, they're not miles ahead of us when it comes to performances. And so even if we don't have it, we are able to still stick with them.
And
And so
compete.
just imagine when we do have it.
Finally, well, let me not say finally. Two final questions. Two final questions. What was the push, Marvin, to get involved in politics? You've done a number of things. You did football administration. What was the push that says, yeah, boy, politics is something that I could get into.
The push was the preparation from always serving my community. There's always a call. I would be at home at midnight, and there would be a knock on my door. And the knock on my door, I would open up, and there would be somebody in my community that needs help. Either the son is sick, the daughter is sick. Can I come and help them get to the hospital? It's they're traveling now, and can I? They're leaving 5 o'clock in the morning. They need to get to the airport. Is it possible that I would give them a ride to the airport? It's me being at home 3 4 o'clock on a Sunday, and somebody bringing some people to my home and saying, this is the guy you have to talk to if you want to get this done. Clean up in my community. This is the guy you have to talk to mobilize the youths if we want to clean up. In fact, when we were building as a community, the Bishop College Hardcourt, a lot of the places over Bishop College, the community of Paul's Avenue, with the youngsters mixed with the older guys like Ipa and all of these people, Manny and Cassandra and all of these from Avenues, Roll It, we would go over to Bishop College, and we built with the contractors. We were the labor force that helped to build a lot of the areas over Bishop College. And so that, when it came to getting the younger persons to come out, these guys would come to me and say, Marvin, get the youngsters together, you get them together, let them come. And I would go around and I would get them to come, and all of us would go over Bishop, and we would do that. And so from that, everybody in the community kind of looked up to me as the person to get things organized. And so I've always been an organizer. I've always been the person to take the leading role, to get positive things done, to mobilize, to do that. It translated into my footballing activities. It translated into my workplace. Everywhere I walked, it was always somebody saying Marvin would lead it, Marvin would take the role, Marvin would do this. And so I said to myself, when I was asked the question, I was asked today, I received a phone call, and I was asked today, Marvin, this is XYZ. If we decide to, as Central Kingston, to put up your name for Central Kingston Executive, and this is Central Kingston people now asking me, if they decide to push my name for representation of Central Kingston, what would I do? And I said, boy, I've been hearing this now for a while. Last election, I was asked the same question, and I decided that I would support the person who was running for Central Kingston at the time. And here we are 4 years later, and I'm being asked the same question again. And I said, is there a reason why this is happening? And I said, you know what? Don't turn it down this time. See where it goes. People have to see something in you that you know is there. Let's see where God leads it. And so I said, okay, I won't turn it down. And I said, yeah, I would put my name up. I would go put my name up. That was the beginning of the conversation. You fast forward to when the candidates the candidate selection process was, and all the persons who were saying that they wanted to go up or put their name up, basically of everybody who could have put their name up, I emerged as the person. And I said to myself, if I emerged as the person, then it means that this is not just me. This is God, because everything I put my faith in God. And I said to myself, if God brings me to it, then God is gonna get me through it. God is gonna get me out of it. He's gonna do something. I'm either gonna learn from it. I'm either gonna build on it. But God has His purpose why I am here, and so I left that with God. Today, I am the candidate for Central Kingstown, and it is because of my compassion. Sian, I have nothing but compassion for my people of Central Kingstown. I love them. I serve them. I have always served them. Go anywhere, and you ask about me, people will tell you that I'm always somebody that they could count on, somebody that they could check on, somebody that they could ask to do something. And because of that, people saw that and decided it is time for you to represent on the greatest stage, because we need somebody like you to help us in the political arena, somebody to stand up for us, to speak for us. And so I did not decline it. I said okay to it, and God has done the rest. He has moved in His way, and I am here. And come what may, I still trust in God. I put my faith in Him that whatever it is His will, and I am just doing it.
Finally, Marvin, someone is asking about football, how you scout players and so on, but we've moved away from that segment, and I'm sorry, but we only have a couple of minutes left, and we've moved on from football. I have one more question for Marvin before I let him go, and the obvious question is, why the ULP? You decided to get involved in politics at a representative level, and this is now beyond the community level where you work with the young people in Paul's Avenue and Green Hill and so forth. This is beyond football. This is now on a national level as in terms of policy. Why the ULP?
Sian, undoubtedly, undoubtedly, St. Vincent, people listening in the diaspora, the ULP and the policies that they have proposed to go forward with and what they have built on and put in place over the years, that is definitely what we need to build on as a country. We are always gonna find areas where we're gonna say, and we're gonna be able from being outside looking in to say we need to do better here, we need to do better there. And I welcome these things where people could think objectively, constructively, and we could say, yes, things need to be better here and better there. But the policies, you're talking about the education system and the things that we have done, and the way that our kids see, and the future for our children, your grandchildren, once the policies of the educational system where we could have scholarships and stuff, and the government keeps investing in our education the way that they have been, the tuition scholarships, the hundreds and thousands of what is happening over the period of time, you have to look at that and say that is one of the things that I'm going with. Now, when you look at the way that we have boomed in tourism, over the period of time. The infrastructure of the Sandals Hotel and Holiday Inn and all that is coming on stream. And you listen to how we are being bigged up, and I say big up from overseas, and people who are overseas looking in and bigging up St. Vincent for the way that we have gone and progressed and the progressive movement and the path that St. Vincent is on based on the policies that we have in place. We have I have no doubt in my mind that the ULP, the government, the prime minister, his vision, the way that he has led by bravery, courage, his going out there and getting his stick to itiveness, perseverance, all of these things, his leadership skills, his leadership qualities, and the people that we have on board of the ULP and what they could bring. I had no doubt in my mind that it was the right team to go with, the right policy to follow. All of that is why I decided that if I'm going to do this, I am going to be with the ULP. If the ULP had said to me, no, we don't want you at this time, Marvin, then I would have said, okay, fine. But I would have still supported the ULP. So it is not even about the candidacy or anything. I'm talking about my children. They at their age, they look at things, they read things, they understand things, they question me, and I'm able to listen to them, and they question in a way like daddy. So if this is happening, like they heard just to tell you, Sian, they heard the calypso from Madzart, where he was singing and asking, give 6 reasons of why we should vote them back. And they asked me, daddy, is he singing about the ULP? And I said, yeah, basically he's saying that he's asking about 6 reasons why you should vote back ULP. And they said, and so he's saying that you can't find one reason. And I said, would you be able to find a reason? If somebody asks you, would you be able to find a reason? And they said, daddy, reason one, we have one of the best airports. We have an airport now that we don't have to, because they travel and they understand what the back and forth is to have to jump from St.
Yeah, so.
Vincent to Trinidad to Barbados to get to somewhere. And they have done that. And they said, daddy, just dial on, just one. And I am able to say one. And I said, so can you do two? And they say, daddy, when I done what, my first daughter is in A-level college, and she said she would say like, daddy, when I done, I know that I could be studying something else. She wants to be a marine biologist, and she says I am doing that at A-level college, and then after that I'm able to go further. That is number two. And she knows that. And so she says, is he singing and lying? Because we have this thing about lying, though. And so is he singing and lying? And I said, it's calypso, it's the art form. Some people are overly dramatic, and some people do it to promote their message. And Mazat is promoting a message that he wants to get out there. But once you know what you know, you just have to understand and decipher what is truth, what is error, what is out there, and be able to deal with it. So even my kids understand the dynamics now. And that is what is happening in St. Vincent. A lot of the young people, when I go out in my constituency and I talk to them, they understand what is happening. They know what is happening. They're not in a bubble where they think everything is fine and dandy. When I talk to them, they tell me, but Mr. Fraser, to tell you the truth, this could be better and we could be doing this better and that. But they're not the type that saying nothing ain't happening in St. Vincent. They're not doing that. So I'm having some very intelligent discussions in my constituency and stuff. And so that is why I would continue to support the ULP if in the future there's some kind of different pathway that something happens. I am still the type of person to stand up and say wrong is wrong, right is right, whatever. And I would always do that. I would, even if I'm inside with the ULP and something is wrong, my first priority, Sian, is to God. It will always be to God. My first priority is to God. And so help me. My future depends on God, because today or tomorrow, you could talk to me today, and then Sian, you could be saying, "Boy, we just had Marvin on the program last night. I can't believe he passed away." That is all in God's hands.
That is
So
life, absolutely.
who am I to be the type of person to stand around saying I'm going to sit when there is wrong and nothing? I am going to continue to speak up. Whether right or wrong, I'm just trusting and praying that I could influence more people in my society, in my community, even in the political arena, that God comes first for all of us, no matter whether we are the prime minister, whether we are the opposition leader, God should come first all the time.
All right, Marvin, that's a fantastic note for us to end this evening discussion. Let me thank you so much for staying up late with us. I know many people who are locked on, really riveted, and enjoying the discussion that we're having. Somebody said, commented and said, "You're a godsend," and they wish you all the best. And I want to wish you all the best as well, Marvin, in this political journey of yours. I do admire the fact, as I said, that you profess your faith and you put your faith first. That is something that's admirable, my brother, and that is something I encourage you to hold on to. Thank you so much, everybody, for staying up late. I wish you well, and maybe some other time as we get into the campaign, we'll interact more, maybe on this program or another program, but hopefully we interact more. All right, buddy? Thanks a lot.
Blessed
Have a good
love,
night.
brother. Blessed love.
All right, man. That was the brother Marvin Fraser. He is the ULP's candidate for the upcoming general election to contest the Central Kingston constituency. We here at Uplate want to wish Marvin all the best. And with that note, we want to thank you so much for staying with us. We went, what, an hour and 20 something minutes. So we want to thank you for staying with us for that length of time, going over time, but I know you enjoyed the program. Until next Thursday, when we are back with you with another program, Sian Marshall wishing you a good night.